Alrighty, I'm back. I hope this time it works out. I had to restart that and sorry I lost you. Okay. Okay, so today's Cinco de Mayo. A great day to talk about Mexican people and real Mexican cultures, not big sombrero hats and sarapes that you bought at Party City. Anyway, but it's also May and it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So, even more of an opportune time to talk about Muxe, the Muxe culture and tradition. Muxe is the name, and sorry if I lost you. Muxe is the name of this yet another type of transvestic fetishism that is practiced in this indigenous region of Mexico. Let's take a look at this. I chose this picture because as we are going to discover, so we're going to analyze the relationship between mothers and sons is going to be of particular note in this really sordid cultural practice. My mother knew a Muxe, though he had assimilated a bit, after leaving Oaxaca. And when he was here in the United States, had assimilated more to American culture. And therefore, he lost some of the trans traits that he had brought with the Muxe tradition that he was following. In the Zapoteca indigenous community of Juchitán, which is in the Oaxacan Isthmus of Tehuantepec. It's a mouthful. It's a Mexican state, Oaxaca. Muches there are a third gender distinction. And as we know, there's no such a thing as a third gender. So here it's sort of like the two spirit, the two spirit and the third gender are really the same dang thing. It's that mystic place that men want to relegate their transvestic fetish, where they want to mystify it. But it's a beautiful region, Oaxaca. I'll show you. Don't get it twisted. Mexico is gorgeous. This is a indigenous region. It has a prehistoric landmarks or ruins, and they're very peaceful people. It's a very poor state, Oaxaca. There's their resources are not many, opportunities are not many, you know. Um, a lot of their economy is wrapped up in the artisan industry, and that's what they do. But it's very beautiful. It's coastal, and um, pretty much all coastal, most coastal regions, and most of the coast of Mexico is gorgeous. It really is. It looks this pristine, like Blue Lagoon. Um, it's these terms, I think, like muxe, for Mexico, it's the muxe. Here, it's transgender or queer. These terms are how cultures have dealt with or are dealing with homosexuality. There's shame in each and every one of these distinctions, I believe, behind these terms. They aim to mystify homosexuality to lessen the stigma. This practice has only been around for about 50 years, goes all the way back to the 70s during the disco era. Um, and it started with a pageant, like all transvestic fetish behavior, seems like. And that's sort of what centers and continues to center now this Misha culture in this region. I'm so glad you're back, Marshmallow. Sorry I lost you. I have footage of this particular pageant that is now sort of like the epicenter of this, the Misha culture. Um, and but I want to start with like a explanatory video. Let's start with a intro video. I'm going to be a chapstick lesbian for this episode. Um, it is believed that 6 to 10% of the men in this region are Musha. So I want to look at their explanation. This is a traditional Musha explanation of how they view their culture. It's very interesting.
En Juchitán, a las mujeres se nos considera como un tercer género. Aunque asumimos ese rol femenino, tenemos esta identidad mushe, que es lo que nos caracteriza. Está el hombre, la mujer y la persona mushe. Aquí no queremos ocupar un lugar el de la mujer, porque la mujer es la mujer, el hombre es el hombre, y la mushe pues es la mushe. Desde este espacio trabajamos para que se respeten nuestros derechos desde nuestro espacio mushe.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the traditional approach to the culture. Okay, this is the third gender. The But they've always, have very much been very clear on the fact that they're not women. Okay. Um there's this narrative, it's really insane, around the culture that the Musha fill a role in the community, but everything is not as it seems. And I'm going to go into some of the, really, there's a lot of psychology here at play, especially with what I've just in the general have seen as a very troubling trend in Mexican culture. uh I don't know if it's a trend. I feel like it's always been there, these very toxic relationships between mothers and sons. And this really shows in a very interesting way in the Musha culture here. It's an unfortunate reality that's going on. They do not see themselves as the American transgender sees themselves. They would say that there are different characteristics. Okay. Um, they feel like they're an embedded part of the community. It's a service. We're going to talk about that. Um, but because they're homosexual men, and as a result of being homosexual men, there's a cultural slavery going on here. Okay. And they're very much already, they're slaves to the binary. It's the binary system that basically boots them out of proper society. That's the shame. They've become indentured to their homes for life to fulfill necessary roles in the home and the community. And the language is very important here. Um, interesting. Interesting. There's a, language. We keep going back, like, and language, of course, is like such an important aspect of the the GC narrative. That we're being critical of how language has also been given this special treatment. It's been queerified. It's been queered. Um, and trend is huge here. Like hola Mary, Mary, Mary. So glad you're here, girl. Um, the trend of this is, I've always called it trending. It's a trend. Gosh, I wanted to pass and fast. Um, Trend is like also a big important aspect here, even in Oaxaca, because as traditional as some parts of Mexican culture can be and still are, even the traditional Muxe language distinctions have been queered. I would call it colonized by the American queering of things. Mm. It's all the same people. And we're going to talk about that. Muy bien. Gracias, Mary. ¿Cómo estás tú, amiga? ¿Cómo estás? Mm-hmm. Trenders. I gotta see that. I still gotta see. He's so angry. I can't stand how angry ContraPoints is. Don't get me started. It's this I think the Muxe have been colonized. Now they've been queered. They've been queered by the American queering of the globe of the recent years, this trend of the non-binary, the non-essence. So the word Muxe, to begin with, is from the pre-colonial Zapoteca civilization. And in the vocabulary, in the Zapoteca vocabulary, it literally means woman, representation of woman, role of woman. This descriptor in their particular language denotes the feminine role. Traditionally, Muxes were known for clearly defining themselves as set apart from women. They used to say that they didn't want to be women. They knew that they were not better nor higher than women. They did not feel like women. Many of the older generations of Muxe, like the one that my mom knew, he was old school, it's just, but he was based in reality. It's not old school. He just knew what was what. Okay. He very much felt this way. The old school people, the older Muxes that are, of course, they're no longer, they're perishing, whatnot. Um, he felt this way. For him to have said that he was a woman, like here in America, the transgender insanity of self ID. If a Muxe, this old school Muxe that my mom knew, if he never would have said that. That's an affront. It would have been an affront for him. The ones worth their hide, they'll say the truth. Because that's like, it was very much about honoring their mother, their grandmother, women in the culture. It's obvious. It's like, you imitate, it's imitation, what you honor, and that's how they worked. Um, However, in the American treatment of trans, okay, the Western promotion and exaltation of trans and in the American academias where queer theory and rhetoric was born, American audience have started like glamorizing the Muxe here. And I have been like keeping an eye on that. I was like, the narrative with an American treatment is very different from how us Mexicanos and the Oaxaqueños, which, they very much, their culture is very much set aside from like, like Chicanos, for instance, different people. Um, yeah, there's some glamorization going on here in America of this particular culture. It got transed too, exploiting it. It really has been exploited towards a transhumanistic message. They've rebranded even the Musha to drive that point. See, trans has been around for a while and it works. See, it's like culturally sound, and people have been practicing this since prehistoric times. Okay. And they're showing these cultural representations, to make it seem like it's tolerance, like it's natural now, like it's always been there. And that's not exactly what's exactly at play here with the Musha at all. Um, there's also this is a woman imitating culture, okay, in Mexico, a woman honoring culture. And now they're being sort of like used as one of the best representations of the gender queer experience. Okay, that's what the American narrative is doing with that. Um, there are a few documentaries. Oh, this one was particularly annoying and not accurate at all. If you get a chance to see it, if you can stomach it, I barely can. Um, there's a few documentaries out there about the tradition, and many of them aim to portray them like saints and saviors. And these documentarians base their entire project on image and the whole aesthetic, uh, like these fancy shots of the musha to, pornify them a little too. It's gotten weird. Against like the backdrop of, yes, like a beautiful Oaxacan scenery. And it is a very culturally rich region. So they portray these men in the same way that the Two Spirit moniker was glamorized by the American queer eye. But mushas have been en vogue right now. No one was paying attention to them, but suddenly with the trans frenzy, uh, um, with and families, families that have practiced this now, they're really much in par with the frenzy of the white moms transing their 2-year-olds. It's like a marker of dignity for the family now. And truthfully, this holds some truth with the musha culture. Okay, there's some truth about, you know, it being a good situation for the family. And I'll talk about why. Everything is not as it seems, y'all. Um, they're like highly productive units in this particular culture. Um, they're lovingly exploited. How's that? That's how the Mexican Oaxacan see it, like a loving exploitation. It's really, I do love the artwork though. It's beautiful, artisanal stuff. Very Mexican and how intricate and stuff it is. They're but I feel like they're really relegated to this identity, But in this culture, I think that these men are exhausted. They're broken. And yeah, the ones that I've known, the one that my mom's friend who passed, he's since passed. He was just by the entire trans experience, like it really weighed so heavily on him. But there I also see it as like being culturally bound, because relationships with moms can get like that. They could be very toxic that way. And we're gonna talk a little bit about that too. So I think that they have like really difficult lives. I don't think that the Muxe in when they reach those, when they get up there in age, they have very difficult lives as a whole as a result of living as trans. And what can be said is a very stringent binary and heteronormative system that doesn't know how to deal with homosexuality. That's what it is, y'all. Let me look at your comments. And I think this is where women were very flexible. This is, I think that's like, I think right there, like where women were like, eh, what harm can come of this? He's just, he just wants to wear my lipstick. And then look what's happened. Okay. I don't even go to Target anymore. Target has so been captured, and it got very annoying. Once they got captured by the gay flag frenzy, it got really annoying for me as a gay. Yeah. It's offensive. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, performance. Also, I think that we need to also like come to a place of agreement with the distinctions. There are some representations I think that are not performance, especially when we're talking about the crossover, androgyny. Ooh, I could talk about androgyny, but it's for another time. Yes, let's get back to the Musha, because these people, this artwork too, though, they're tradespeople in this region, especially in particular, this Musha culture. Son artesanías. And of course, all of Mexico really depends, the economy greatly depends on artesanías. And here at the border, you could get the most beautiful things to decorate your house like this. Excuse me. For extremely inexpensive. This is probably like $5. You can barter this, which is a shame. It's a lot of time. It's kind of like slave work in a way. This is what we call el bordado. Bordado. This is embroidery, because the culture is known for this kind of elaborate dress. The dresses of this region, Oaxacan region, are very beautifully elaborate this way. Which says a lot about, I think, the women, the fashion that the women, and they're very modest dresses. They're very beautiful. And many of these jobs have been reserved for only these men, these effeminate homosexual men. And what the culture is not saying or would not be willing to admit, I think, is that these roles and the tradition that comes with it, uh, being like an effeminate homosexual were specifically created, they've been practiced, they've been continued to keep them housebound, homebound, family bound, mother bound most of the time. Mother and father bound. It's like it's sneaky in a way. Um oh, there's a lot of detail that will be supporting these claims. Uh I want to take a look at I want to watch with you guys. This is a really part of my discussion here about this culture. One of the documentaries that I've managed to find that I've it's been out. It's been for out for a while. Okay. Um I think this particular documentary comes very close to how I think the reality of the Musha indoctrination, how it starts, and it's, very telling, and we're gonna take a look at it's a very short documentary, but we're gonna take a look at this because okay.
Las niñas, por lo mayor, jugaban más conmigo. Tenía hasta esa duda, ¿por qué las niñas más me llaman que yo juegue con ellas que los niños? Pasó más el tiempo, ya todos me llamaban, ay, que otro muxe más.
Uno nace, no se hace.
Now, that's very clearly to me a performance. Like that. Let's talk about performance. Absolutely. When you try to modify your voice, like that obviously, to try to get that artificial higher decibel, I find that creepy. That's like creepy clown status.
Hace. A mis papás pues ya se daban cuenta, pero nada más que se hacían de la vista gorda. Mi mamá siempre me apoyaba y pues decía que ya no me podía ir.
No es ser gay, no es ser homosexual, no es ser otro rol, no, es ser muxe. Ser muxe es ser muxe.
This is
La historia pues comienza desde los 4 o 5 años. Antes mi papá era pescador. Él todavía no entendía cómo estaba mi forma de ser. Vaya, si era si era el otro. Bueno, 7 de la mañana hasta las 2 de la tarde me ponía yo a hacer lo que se me pegaba la gana. Como me gustaba bailar, me invitaron a una fiesta, fui vestida, que me habían tomado una foto y al otro día pues llegó la foto. Y mi mamá recibió la foto. Y yo cuando llegué del trabajo, me dice, mamá, ¿quién es esta? Se joder de ti. Si llega a ver tu papá, me dice.
This dude is really making me uncomfortable. Like, I don't think I could be very okay in the presence of this guy. He's kind of strange. That maniacal look.
Yo si tuviera hijos, yo no dejara que pasara las cosas que yo pasé. Pero pues todo bien, ahorita seguimos bien, yo estoy bien y todo. Y las cosas que me han pasado, pues...
Everything's fine. Promise.
son por experiencia, ¿verdad? Ay, perdón.
It can't be easy.
Pero pues, ay, no. Así pasa. ¿Qué le vamos a hacer?
Yo, pues, te quiero mucho porque ayuda. Él trabaja, él lava ropa, él hace comida, él hace atolito, hace todo. Él ya tiene como 2 años y ya le dio cuenta de que va a salir mucho. Porque cuando nació no sentía nada. Viene por el dolor de hombre, no viene dolor de mujeres. Viene el dolor de hombre más fuerte.
Señor, pero los hijos no son esclavos, señor. Kids are not your slaves. This is something that I don't think Mexican parents really get sometimes. Like, you hire help if you need. I don't know. It's like at this level, I think with this culture in particular, it, understandable. I also, of course, we have to consider the what they face in this region, the lack of resources and opportunities. Given all of that, she's, it's just ay, señora.
Más grande dolor.
Ooh,
Ya está.
absent father.
Acá en mi casa me maltrataban. Y pues ya no estaba yo a gusto, yo nada más me andaba cuidando las espaldas, me andaba yo cuidando a qué hora llegaba, porque si iba a llegar tomado me tenía que decir de cosas. Mejor empecé a trabajar en una tienda de abarrotes, ahí me quedaba la casa de esas señoras. Yo preferiría 1000 veces que me maltrataran ahí, porque ahí me regañaban.
There's a lot of escapism here too at play, I'm sure. Homophobia in the house will do that to you. It's not fun to have homophobic parents and absent drunk ass father.
Regañaban cuando yo fallaba y acá en mi casa no. Acá me maltrataban aunque yo no hiciera nada. Yo me desaparecí como 2 años y pues como que me perdieron de vista tanto. Ya cuando me volvieron a ver, pues yo ya me dejaba crecer el cabello, ya me maquillaba. Todavía no sabía qué era la reacción de mis papás. De mi mamá, pues yo sabía que me iba a apoyar.
Cuando yo era niño yo tenía esa idea de vivir como una persona muxe.
Mi nombre es Carolina Yelvis. Quiero que la gente me dice Carolina. Me gusta pintar los labios y también me gusta pintar el ojo.
Mijo, pero porque usted anda con esas cosas? That's like another thing. Like, this is, of course, sexualization unnecessary for this age. That's what I'm asking. That's what I would ask little kids in my neighborhood if they were coming up like this, little flashy. ¿Por qué andas haciendo, mijo? ¿Qué pasa? Ugh. I know. I don't like it when I start seeing the kids, and we're going to talk about Musha kids, trans kids. Friggin'.
Yo quiero hacer un muxe. Mi hermano mayor me regaña y él esconde a la.
The grooming is already there, and the grooming, I think, is mostly societal grooming. It's already in the culture. It's been at play in the cultural. It's been transvestic fetish before the 70s, and then something happened in the 70s, and we're going to talk about that and what, this culture has had its evolutionary points, I guess, okay? And now it's like there were never children that were in Muxe. Muxe was always understood, just like the transsexual, homosexual. They were always understood to be adults making these kinds of calls.
Las ropas para que yo no los pongo. A él no le gusta que yo me ponga ropa de mujeres, pero a mi hermana sí. Hay veces ella me presta sus ropas.
See, and that homophobia, of course, the father. And see, this is a component of this relationship between the mother and the son that makes mothers go crazy sometimes, understandably so. If they're having to deal with homophobic father, drunk ass father. And I'm talking about like it makes like the mothers go like very overprotective. It kicks the relationship of the mother and father into another different level if she's having to defend the son from horrible homophobia.
Se ponían agua de una amiga, una blusa se ponía, se pintaba, brasier y todo eso. Pues la verdad yo quería que él fuera hombre, pero como pues él nació así, lo trae de nacimiento. Porque
yo quería que él fuera hombre, pero porque él nació así. ¿Cómo? She's saying, I wanted him to have been born a man. I wanted a man, but he was born like this. So, what? Homosexual. See, and it's not like these mothers like don't love their sons. It's because they have to contend with the fact that their son's not going to fit into their particular culture, their particular binary system. And the family is very important to the tradition, to Mexicanos, to Latinos. We know this.
Porque desde que empezó a caminar, nos dimos cuenta que él era así. Y pues la verdad, pues no me molesta, es mi hijo. Lo tengo que aceptar tal como es. Le doy gracias a Dios porque pues yo no tengo niña, una niña nada más tengo. Y con él pues ya tengo 2.
Algunas mamás, por su condición.
She has daughters. She's really happy about that because, you know, the daughters will go on and she hopes she'll marry them off. It's a practice that needs to be upheld. The prospect of marriage and children. It's very important here. And yeah, the son whose transvestic fetishism is being celebrated or encouraged, he has a very important role. He has a very important role in all of this, and it's celebrated.
Condición económica quieren tener un hijo muxe,
Exactly.
porque como tienen hijos varones, no tienen a alguien que les ayude en la casa. Entonces, si ven que su hijo tiene como ciertas tendencias femeninas, lo que hace es como encauzarlo. Esa mamá que está protegiendo a su hijo muxe tiene una idea muy egoísta, porque esa mamá dice, ok, yo me alegro y le agradezco a Dios que tuve un hijo muxe, porque mi hijo muxe no se va a casar.
Exactly, I'm telling you, it's like the prospect of marriage.
Aquí son muchas en casas, a veces si no hay 2, hay 1 o hasta 3. Pues, integrarte con la sociedad, pues que es lo más importante, que te tomen en cuenta. Que tomen en cuenta de que también estás viva, que también piensas y todo.
Aquí la sociedad, en general, lo que incluye mujeres, hombres, ya se fue conociendo más la vida de los muxes, entonces la gente fue aceptando. Muxes son normal.
La mujer que es hombre y el hombre que es mujer, pues convivimos con ella. Y eso no sucede en cualquier parte del mundo, sucede en Cuchitán nada más.
Of course. Uphold it.
Son pocas las oportunidades que le dan a uno. En tiempos, pues trabajaba yo de sirvienta o si no, vender dulces, ¿no? Así en la calle. Pues aquí, como es un pueblo, pues ya de todo se ve todavía. Yo me fui a la capital. Trabajaba en la calle. Me prostituía, empecé a trabajar en un bar, luego trabajé en la calle. Yo no tenía cama, yo no tenía nada.
I had to prostitute myself because I'm trans. It never fails. The trans to street prostitute pipeline is quite a fast one too.
En una caja de cartón
And cross-cultural.
tenía yo mi ropa, pero sí tenía para la droga. Cuando estaba un cliente y traía, ¿le jalas? Ay, sí, ponle. Al ratito ya me veías con la tarjeta yo como dándola. Ay, le digo así, no, así. Y no tenía yo para comprar una cómoda o comprar una cama. Para que no me saliera barba y que la voz no fuera muy gruesa, pues me inyectaba yo hormonas, pero me costaba 100.
Gosh, that has always exhausted me. This is how you know you're talking to men. This is how you know this a man. Yes, that's a full man. This is how you know this is a man, because their narrative is always so cavalier, isn't it? It's always so like, oh, just to get my feminine voice, I injected that hormone. Such a quick risk that they're just feel so entitled to.
121 y me tenía que poner 2 a la semana. Llegué a inyectarme también en los glúteos, llegué a inyectarme en las piernas. Por estarme inyectando, yo estuve hospitalizada. Estuve un mes sin moverme, sin hablar, la mitad del cuerpo se me murió. Estuve en coma un mes. Y luego cuando desperté, mi mamá estaba ahí. Lo más que me hacía me hacía sentir más feo, porque dije, mira hasta dónde llegó mi mamá, ¿no? Y por mi putería.
Ana rabia sibu bisu akaenda kutilwara abe machoni teji nyema wanisija sa mungela ibe ke no adia con no ni tela ni tori ya la ma cayó la no yo se cayó la
Always with mommy.
La relación que tenía yo con mi papá era muy dura. No comía yo en la mesa con ellos. Quería que comer él antes que yo.
That voice ain't passing for me. That voice ain't even trying.
Si mi mamá no hubiese estado de mi lado, 1 o 2. O me hubiera matado o me hubiera ido. Nunca.
That is sad, actually. That's very unfortunate, because in Latino culture, and I can imagine that the more regional you get, the stronger that practice will be. The men, tell the men, uphold the practice of beating the gay. Okay, they still do that. That's such a thing in Latino culture. I'm not sure. I don't know if there are other cultures that practice beating the gay, but well, no, I mean, yeah, here with like Boys Don't Cry. That's Tina Brandon's story. That was horrible. Yeah, like this is very common in Latino culture for family men in your own family to take you out in the back, try to beat the gay out of you. Try it a couple times. Horrible.
Se sentó a platicar conmigo. Entonces, tener un recuerdo de él bonito, no. Perdonarlo, no puedo. Y una vez le dije, tú ya estás muerto. Mi mamá me quería más ayudar. a comprender qué era yo. Me sacaba de los golpes de mi papá. Nunca me dijo que quiero que seas muxe. Nunca.
Dice aquí, hay algunos que dicen que hay mucho efecto en la mamá que el hijo sale muxe, porque hay mamás que realmente quiero un muxe, entonces empuje el niño para ser muxe. ¿Es verdad? ¿Hay?
Sí.
Okay. He said yes.
Pues a mí me gusta mi vida, lo que me tocó vivir no me arrepiento. Si volviera a nacer, seguiría siendo muxe o la vida que me tocó, pues estoy conforme, pues no hay problema por eso. Acá en mi casa pues me llaman por mi nombre, ¿no? Mariana. Mi verdadero nombre pues eso ya se quedó en el pasado, se lo llevó el aire.
Yo soy un hombre que quiere estar con otro hombre. Cuando yo era niño yo tenía esa idea de vivir como una persona muxe, pero esta idea cambió radicalmente. Yo quiero vivir como una persona que se está preparando. No niego mi identidad muxe, pero tampoco yo quiero vivir de tener una vida tan convencional. Sí me considero una persona muxe.
So this guy right here that we just talked to right here, this guy, he's a new gen Muxe. He's very much, and I see him now in all of the glamorized, don't get it twisted. This guy has radicalized since, okay? But this is a new generation who brought the academic queer language into this culture even. Okay, they were not safe from colonization if Western American queer theory were managed to infiltrate the culture, and it's these guys, the new generation. But I want to talk about you know, what they did exactly. They changed the language now. They've of course brought the new language, the queer language. The Mexican testament. Let's finish this.
Muxes para mí significa libertad. Te mueves, te diviertes, porque te ven sonreír con cada persona que encuentres que hable de ti. Muxes es una sonrisa para mí.
Of course, because it's your fetish. It's how you like to represent yourself. Okay, that's what it is. Interesting, right? That now, well, there's it's a very different narrative that has grown from this point. But we saw here that dynamic, that family dynamic, that homophobia that is really at the heart of continuing this particular representation of the transvestic fetish. Because in these houses, that's like the defective child. Okay. This is a thinking here that he won't marry, nor will he father a family. There will be no normal social connections for this son who is visibly gay and expresses himself femininely. It's all too convenient for these mothers to keep an extra hand close. Okay. The mothers very much drive this narrative. Muxes, because they are seen as effeminate but very capable boys, are preferred to care for the parents. Some of the mothers, they believe that they make the best daughters and sons in one, and they want to utilize them for domestic benefit as much as possible. If there is homophobia from a present father, the mothers, they become very overprotective. Okay. We talked about the whole beating the gay out of sons. This is very common in, from the fathers especially. It's a symbiotic relationship, the mother and son dynamic here. And there's like a shared loneliness, I think. I remember the stories that my mom's Muxe friend used to tell us. Sad stuff. Like, he and his mom had a really weird relationship. Like, a lot of loneliness, like freaking Grey Gardens type of, okay? And this becomes very isolating, I think, also for both. Some of these relationships can be very isolating this way. And definitely, like, the mothers isolate themselves sometimes with the effeminate gay sons. It's not good for them either. Very like Norman Bates type of codependency. I'm not trying to diagnose anybody ever, but I see the mama's boy complex at play here. This is very common in Mexican mother-son relationships, and is not necessarily homosexual sons. So I can see how like effeminate sons, in particular, would be like endearing to the moms. There's more there to protect. There's like more to protect a son from. This is Mexican moms love that. They love being lionesses. It's cultural, okay? It's cultural. It's like an over-reliance. Also, it becomes an over-reliance on the part of the boys, on their mother, to cope with homophobia and the binary enforcing society at play here. So the Muxes of past eras, they've idolized women and even saw their way of living as like an honoring. They're imitating their mothers and grandmothers. They're idolizing them. That's what was going on in the old Muxe tradition before Judith Butler. They worship the feminine, their mothers, their grandmothers, women in this society, which is can have pockets of and epics of matriarchy. It can be a matriarchal culture sometimes of Oaxacan people. It depends. There's pockets of it. I've seen it. These unhealthy relationships created from homophobia and cultural servitude have even been framed as lucky or like a blessing to the house to have such a gifted and resourceful child, a Muxe. Same as with the Native American two-spirit, which there's no such thing as a two-spirit. We already know this. It's a gay. It's a gay. So transvestic fetishism had been going on in this region to deal with homosexuality and the religious binary enforcing society for as long as trans fetish has been going on. And sometime there was like sometime in the 70s, around the time of disco, I guess, at the height of like all kinds of debauchery, coincidentally. There's like a Muxe ball, an event had begun. Okay, so it's like they've had transvestic fetishism in the form of, creepy house enslavement practices, and then suddenly in this region, one of these Muxes decided to put on a ball, a pageant. Oh gosh, it's like the town thought it needed a Muxe pageant, and thus this pageantry that we call concursos de belleza. Oh, so annoying. All kinds of pageantry. These events, complete with like catwalk, coronation. Let me look at these comments. These events just started up in the 70s. We're gonna look at these events. They are a whole drag. Totally made up. Right? It's another queerified. Let's get into this. Oh my gosh. It's like I'm holding Mexicans to account. I'm here with receipts. Mexicans, I'm mad at you for doing this. Con sus concursos de belleza también, mi gente. Cálmense. I don't know what happened. Like, beauty, pageantry, and culture also. I think it's like it must have a relationship with trans ideology. Someone's gonna look into that. Oh, good night, Mary. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye, Mary. Yes. See me, Mary. Definitely. Let's get into this. So, yes. Pageantry, like every November now since the 70s, there's like a 3-day celebration in Oaxaca. That's a different thing. That didn't exist before. Okay. And they call it the Vigil of the Authentic. The Vigil of the Authentic and Intrepid Danger Seekers. It's literally what it's called. This ball is at the time when it came out in the 70s, it was like their inaugural. It's like their big, let's start celebrating the Muxe in a very small town. And it was very much relegated to that place, to a small location. And it's what marked the embracing of the Muxe men, because they're men, since flamboyant gay men had been around forever, and the mystic culture needed to explain away homosexual sons. So they celebrate them every year now. This has opened up the region to tourism, especially the gay tourist market. The Oaxacan Muxe Vigil pageant is like a big thing now. So let's take a look at these people because it's going to be very interesting, this one. Oh my gosh. Like every area. Check this out. There are female or trans identifying female representations in the Muxe, yes. But they are, of course, like 1 in 1,000. I'm sure the lesbians in the region have totally taken up the Muxe glam. Okay. Here we go.
Una noche espectacular, lleno de estrellas, lleno de muchas hermosas.
Y para continuar con este evento, vamos a hacer el desfile de embajadoras y reinas. Música, maestro, por favor.
Look at the poor townspeople. No one really, like, I've seen footage of this and like nobody looks like they're having fun. They look confused by it all. They're like, we've got so much more to live for, and there's so much left to say. Only the music is having fun. Oh my. We must put our heads and hearts together to make tomorrow a better day. Ay, compadre. So much more to live for. What? It's like. so it's not a family show anymore. Okay, so that's also changed. It used to be a family show. I saw, my gosh, the way that they dress, it's just so obnoxious. No one looks like they're having fun. It's a confused crowd. They're like total sex clowns. Case in point. And just, they need to get this vanity out of their system. That's what this is. Once a year, they're all like, let me have at it. And then we can go back to drinking. Because that's what mostly they do. Let's finish this. This is not excitable. This is not, I don't think, this is obviously very misrepresented and under or oversold, because not even the townsfolk here look like they're having fun. These women look scared. This one in particular, they look terrified. They have to. This is a system of patriarchy. No one really has a choice in any of this, right? In every culture where transgenderism is thriving this way, is displaying itself this way, no one has fun. I feel like people are just looking around confused, like, when is this going to be over?
Vamos a tener en esta noche nuestra amiga Kenia.
Oh gosh.
Para entregar el cetro
They're always having
y la
a winner.
corona
This is very transphobic.
a su sucesora. Vivi primero.
This is too transphobic for my liking. And I don't want to continue to see this transphobic mess of there having to be the chosen one, the most passing one. Oh my goodness. Oop. Gotta get that back. Oh, it's they dress, yes. The Muxe females, okay, very much, yes. They will dress like men, but it is not at all. It's not even in the same system. The mothers there, I do not think that they would stand to gain much from a lesbian daughter either. In this type of way. Oh my goodness. That was something else. So I'm going to get that back because we have to totally go back and parse that particular video out. It's everything. And yeah, this festival happens now once a year in Oaxaca. But this is Mexico now. This is the binary. This is culturally enforced. Okay, the binary, the prospect of marriage, children. And it's extremely important to these people. And homosexuality out in the open for men, especially to enjoy relationships, even the women, lesbian women, just being butch lesbian women and maybe living lesbian lives, okay, which come in very, very many different forms. And a lot of them do not adhere to the traditional binary expected roles. It's very, very discouraged by families here still, homosexuality. And they are groomed in this sense to stay at home for domestic roles and especially expected to care for parents when they become elderly. A good majority of these men do get into prostitution, as they do, or escorting. It's fast money in this region. They do this, as always, primarily to fund for modifications, which many of these men, let me tell you, the entire system of modification for specifically trans identifying males is really a life and death situation in Mexico because there's so much botchy surgeries there. And many of these men will go to DF, to the capital, Mexico DF. It's where most of the medical hospitals, the clinics, and the botchy surgeons are at. It's in the main cities, and they go there to the capital, and they go into the black markets, and they are absolutely ignorant about these things. And I want to show you just how ignorant that they are to the horrible and very like primitive body modification culture they have there. Okay, let's take a look. Okay. This is a heavy one too.
Pero de repente, no disfrutas la fiesta como lo disfrutaras cuando vas de espectadora. Yo creo que mejor me compraría un vestido divino y me disfrutaría de la fiesta. Bueno, en mi caso, el año pasado yo gasté como, de la cuestión solo de la fiesta, como 95,000 pesos. Los gastos de modificaciones fueron aparte. Ahí no se han de haber sido como 60 o algo así.
Ay, pues los gastos de modificación, los gastos, tengo que gastar. They talk about like the expenses of tranzing as if it's you got to have that money. I mean, that's a given. Modifications.
Y aparte las 95, el hecho de hacerte cambios, modificaciones, no implica de que ya vayas a ser como una chica muy plástica, que ya vayas a ser como las demás. Siempre tienes que tener tu marca, tu esencia.
Mi hijo, ya eres plástico, ya eres.
Y eso he tratado de querer mantener. Primero me hice cirugía de nariz, después me hice implantes de senos, después hice infiltraciones de aceites que te ponen.
Aceites. I'm concerned about that word, okay? Because he's talking about getting oils injected. Oils. The hell are they injecting in you? That's another thing, those injectables, like those butt injectables, and then they'll inject their chests. Who knows what's in that? Gosh, it's like, this is yet another reason why it's baffling to me that anyone would support this ideology at base. Like, why are you, this is transphobic. Why are you supporting these poor trans people, like their access to like injectables, oils that could harm them? You pressure them into passing. That's very transphobic.
Pues en el DF, según son aceites no perjudiciales, pero pues no sabes, a la larga.
Exactly. Ay, bien, lo dice bien casual. Eso es lo que me cae mal de esta gente. They say things so casual. So like, it might not be safe. Who knows? But you gotta do it. That's very transphobic.
Que lo que pueda suceder, ¿no?
Cuando mis compañeras han estado en la Ciudad de México, hoy tú las ves y hoy la estética de lo occidental les ganó. Por ejemplo, hay un personaje que se dedica a poner aceites en la parte de las piernas para aumentar el volumen. Y uno no sabe cuáles son los químicos de los que se están usando. Algunas, por experiencia, hemos visto que se ponen duras y luego les obstruyen las articulaciones, por ejemplo. Se puede ser
Hold on a
necesario.
second here. I am really not liking the so this is Vice. Okay, we always got to like analyze our sources, okay? This is Vice. This I parsed this out because all of this was just glamorizing. And this is an example right here. Do you hear this ridiculous music playing in the background? Like some sensual, sexy geisha.
Algunas, por experiencia, hemos visto que se ponen duras y luego les
To frame this weird discussion on injecting oils, you don't know what's in these oils, but you just inject them in your thighs and to make it look like they're female. No bigs. And they're framing this weird conversation with this sexy parlor music.
les obstruye las articulaciones, por ejemplo. Se puede ser femenino, pero desde una cultura propia. Si no generamos los mecanismos que permitan avisorar los problemas que tienen que ver con la feminización del cuerpo sin información, nos vamos a tener un problema más allá del SIDA.
Ay, no, 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 no.
Que hoy el...
Ay, señor, ¿cómo hablan de veras ustedes? Like, these people, they talk so much and they get so many freaking damn words in there. And it's very confusing. I don't even understand. I don't even think that they understand what they're saying. They always want to hook you with a reason to feel bad for their particular minority of gay men. And the HIV, the chronic, if you don't let us be trans, we'll all get HIV. We see you, sir.
El SIDA puede ser un problema crónico degenerativo. El problema del aceite puede ser inmediato. En lo que te lo ponen, te está obstruyendo la articulación, se te tapan las venas y no hubo manera de poder salvarte.
Cuando yo tengo como 14 años, empiezo a trabajar en el show transvesti completamente y ahí conozco a un transvesti que se llama Cristel y me dice, oye, ¿por qué no te cambias, modificas un poco tu cuerpo? Le dije, ¿pero cómo? Y me dice, pues con hormonas. ¿Y qué son hormonas? ¿No? Yo no sabía. Y me dice, pues anticonceptivos, ¿no?
Ay, son anticonceptivos, tío. No es nada. Son nomás un poco de anticonceptivos que ni los necesitas porque eres hombre. Ay, ¿cómo habla esta gente?
Y yo, protector rosa, y me inyecto el primer anticonceptivo y eso me empieza a producir este cambio secundario en empezar a sacar, pues, los pechos, te empieza a crecer la cadera.
Ay, quiere cadera. I can't.
También, porque esto te produce un cambio completamente emocional. De repente estás bien, de repente estás mal, de repente te enojas, de repente lloras, o sea, te hace un efecto completamente secundario, ¿no? Pues ha sido el darme la libertad, esa es la palabra, y el decir, esta soy yo, y esto es lo que voy a seguir dando hasta que Dios quiera, ¿no?
Uno de los más grandes errores que
No, to these people, it's like, yeah, the route to these body modifications, that's new too, I'm sure, in the transvestic culture of the Muxe. Oh my goodness. Let's continue. They're just another pocket of trans, okay? It's just another trans representation. That's all it is. There's no way to mystify this. Not to me, who has known this culture. Actually, it's now common in Mexico, in all of Mexico. Now that America has glamorized the Muxe culture of what was just basically transvestic fetishism before, and glamorized it this way and gave it the queered third gender look at us. It culturally works. Now that they're doing that, now that we know everyone in Mexico is a Muxe, okay? That's just everyone's transgender. Everyone is a Muxe now in this region. And so even that has been exploited, right? The language. The queers have exploited the once rather traditional AGP culture and turned it into very, very queer. And they've adopted new terms now. Like that's something that has changed also with this transhumanistic trend that is going on, this proliferation of self-ID. Even the Muxe have been captured because now they are contending, the culture now has new terms. They've adopted terms like new rewordings, like Muxe noir. Okay, there's different kinds now, which is like woman appearing and several different other representations. It's woman. Muxe was just woman before. Now they've added on to it. This is a queerified language. This is new. There's Muxe na, which is woman appearing. Muxe gi, male appearing. They even have Muxe ola, which is an elderly Muxe. Now they've probably to accommodate the minor attracted people. And then the Muxe uni, kids. Now there are trans kids in the new Muxe culture. Kids don't know anything. They're transing for fun. There's like a freaking transing for the whole family, it seems now in Mexico. For Muxe kids getting their like in the region now, in the culture now, in what is now the new Muxe, like kids they have like whole ceremonies where once they are starting to identify as Muxe, they get like their first dress as a rite of passage. It's really cray. Remember that when it comes to trans, there are never any set rules. All of this is so arbitrary. Men can make up crap as they go. Okay. They can add new language. They can accommodate the elderly. They can get kids in here. They're just another representation in that specific culture. And that is how the culture has made sense of homosexuality for the public. But I do not see the women of this or any other culture as having any kind of say in the matter too, because it is their sex being rebranded by men. Exploited. Not even in this culture have they had a say. Not as a whole. Even these women are operating from tradition. And tradition here is homophobia. When the mothers have done this, what the mothers here have done to their sons is sadly how I think Latinos, how it's also how it's how the Latinos are doing it. This is how the Indian Hiras are done. This is the entire Samoan diaspora, the Fafafina, how the American gay kids are being handled by the discombobulated society. This is what happens. It's pederastic grooming and a culture proliferating it. All of it. The Muxes don't get a pass for me. The mothers are practicing a custom that has long been practiced on females. This is like spinsterizing. These are confirmed bachelors, if you will. Sounds fancy with men, but it's like so dignified. And in this region specifically, where resources and opportunities are scarce, and we have these smothers here, these marginalized women from a culture that has found a way to suppress homosexuality, to stifle it with this practice of culturally enslaving gay sons for servitude and labor and eventually their own sexual exploitation. That's what happens because it locks men. It's locking these men from childhood into, again, the trans ideology, telling everybody this ideology that tells everybody in every culture that there exists both a metaphysical and physical material reality. Everybody is confused by this. And in this culture, I see the confusion with it too. Their society is running amok with it too. In our cultures, like I really feel like, we are in we're really trying to put a band-aid on this. We really want to sort of like make everybody emotionally okay with a trans ideation. Like that's how we want to like soothe our kids. So that's how we want to tell them that it's okay to self-soothe with this kind of ideation. I saw this the other day. This is in the academias here. This is UCLA Health. This is an American academic institution. I have a lot of family that went to UCLA. How gender affirming care can help treat emotional pain. This is at the forefront of scientific medicine. This is what we're doing. This is we talk about mental health awareness, but this is what we have in mental health. This is ridiculous. I don't even want to read through this. I already have. It's ridiculous. Look it up if you want to, but this is a way forward. We're treating emotional pain, pain from probably from homophobia. We're treating that with gender ideology. Make it make sense. Oh gosh. Replace the sex in this context. The Muxe. Replace the sex. This is the American Muxe. Replace the sex. Make it a Muxe female, like the yogi or the way. A practice of keeping young women at home for domestic servitude and playing into the fantasy that she is a boy so that she can farm and do manual labor and act as a placeholder of a son and man, because that is like in the locale, female and femininity, the role of the female even is as valuable as it is, can produce more. Our cultural servitude for women is in the sex trade, in prostitution, in the exploitation of our bodies. This is how boys are exploited. Muxe is just another black hole in a culture in which you couldn't accept how a gay son in the culture is valueless, but a trans identity in which we build a whole culture of pretend and fake acceptance around is good. Trans is a lifestyle of dissociation and cutting with extreme surgeries, most of them unsafe, and procedures on the cheap. But that obsession has already taken over. Now they must be the best specialized privilege oppression group that they can be. They will prostitute themselves right away. It comes with the territory, it seems like. In Latino culture, anxiety caused by sex distress and body dysmorphia aggravated by your mom, your family, your village, depression, because this becomes an obsession to obtain the most hypersexualized femininity. You're like a perpetual actor. There's a lot of drinking, alcoholism, drug use in the trans community. the trans identifying Mexican male community, and gay men like the harder stuff. Okay. What I just don't understand what the parents think that this lifestyle is going to make of these men by the time that they're 50. If they have these sons with them at all, if it works out for them until they pass. Even in this primitive culture, men will uphold transitioning fallacies. They have created it in every culture, but it is very clear to me that, look at that. It's very clear to me that this isolated region, they have fanned the flames. They've been doing so with this ideology. This has really captured women there. We've trusted too much. Madres. You know, I talk to my Latinas all the time. Las maneras en las cual criamos los hijos tampoco están ayudando a esta situación. Pueden ser maneras tóxicas, como estamos criando los varones. Y en esta cultura, I think that like in our culture, Mexican moms, like, you know, I know it's a balance. Okay. But this has really also captured Mexican women. You've allowed a lot. You allow a lot in your sons. You allow a lot. In Latino culture, the relationships with the mother and father, they're very important. It's also wrapped into the religious aspect of the culture. Relationships between moms and sons, like I said, in Latino culture are very toxic. I've seen mothers condone misogynist behavior in their sons because so long as the son and the mother have a good relationship, they'll treat them like princes. Okay? The mothers don't care how these men will then go out and treat women. So long as their son is provided for. I've seen this, madres latinas. Mothers in Latino culture will create mama's boys that remain mama's boys well into like their 50s and 60s, to the detriment of every marriage they attempt and everybody. Major enablers. Let's look at these comments. Yeah. %. I mean, come on, there's moms in the American culture too. I think in every culture you will see this. This is global. This is globally trending, trans ideology, the academic desperation for defining gender, for hybridizing human sexuality, that academic desperation, I think, for creating the third space. You got on my nerves with that, academics. And I was in the academias. Okay, I've talked about this in other places before. I come from a bit of an academic background, one could say. I was a linguistic librarian at a university, a big one. And the culture of language there around this and that wanting to create a third space. I talk to academics in philosophy. I'm a philosophy major. And I used to go and hang out with the kids and talk about some of these issues. Of course, really fast did I hightail it out of there for my safety. But even in philosophy, which I cannot believe that philosophy can be captured. Any philosopher that calls themselves a philosopher and goes along with this, I just don't trust you. I don't trust you. Anyways, I can name names. I don't want to. The push for the third space, the academic push, or the third sex, that's only emboldened the Muxe identifying trans variant and really all the trans sex globally. have been influenced by Western American capture, okay, by the Western American transhumanistic craze. This is a global influence. So yeah, geez, Amusha got captured. Talking about negative feelings is very discouraged. I've talked about this a little bit before. I don't want to. As I've said, I'm very Mexican in this respect, and talking about negative feelings in the Mexican culture is very discouraged. I don't know if I should say. Should I say? It's a whole, we're really a whole vibe with it. Excuse me, with mental health. Things have gotten better, I think, in Latino communities. But I still see Latino parents sweeping issues under the rug. They don't want to see, I think the stigma with mental health in Latino communities is that nobody wants to be seen as local. That's the thing. If you even admit, it's like very Tony Soprano, like the Italians are the same way. Like, exactly. You don't, yeah. You definitely do not take your mess to, you don't take it to anybody. You don't talk about anything. What happens in Latino households stays in Latino households. That's the mentality. Okay. This is why Tony Soprano didn't want any of his like henchmen to know, because he could have been killed. It's like the same with the Mexicans. But seriously, they just don't want to, Mexican people don't want to be seen as crazy, as mentally unfit or weak. We do not believe in therapy. It's the truth. This is why a lot of these mothers, I mean, come on, in these regions, probably therapy is not even a resource. This is what I'm talking about. This is very low resources, very low education, right? You know, even medical education. Okay. And mental health is not really like, you know, talked about there. And it's definitely seen as it's a sign of weakness. Definitely. We're a whole vibe. There's like other issues, you know, like language barriers. You know, a lot of Latinos no hemos querido ir al doctor que nos chequeen porque pensamos que no hay doctores que hablen, que sean bilingual y que puedan hablar con nosotros. Like, I get it, you know, Spanish speaking resources are hard to come by, my people especially. I hope this message reaches a lot of Mexican moms. We need to talk. Like, mental health is important. It's for survival mode now, okay? And Latinos need to stop being proud about this. I'm sick of us on this. All of it. I know, because we don't want to admit that's what's going on. Marsh, we don't want to admit that there's problems. That's what's happening. Because we know that it's a long road. It'll be a long road to decolonize, right? From where we're at. There's also social stigma about going to therapy, like especially amongst family. That was something that I hid from my family for a while. There's also religion. Religion very much, you know, Catholics, they don't like worldly things. They don't like outside influence. And I know the Jehovah's Witnesses roll like that too. That's so toxic. The Jehovah's Witnesses be telling people, like, do not get a college degree. Not that I think that college degrees like have that much value much anymore. Like, learn a trade. But yeah, religion messes everything up. Like trans ideology, which is a religion. But it's mostly I think the Mexican I can only speak for Chicanos and Mexican people. I think it's like also a fear of being analyzed. We're like, don't look at us. We don't want to be analyzed. We don't want people to tell us our truths. We are just pretty much made to easily accept myths that are tied up to our culture. But culture gives us trauma too. And there are problems with Latino households that so often go unspoken, such as child sex abuse. That's one of those things that makes Mexican and Latinos not want to go to therapy, because then you're going to have to deal with child sex abuse. And we don't want to deal with that. Okay. I'm sure a lot of these Muxe identifying dudes, okay, I'm sure a lot of them had experienced sexual trauma. I mean, they were groomed. This is a very easily groomed population, as we can tell. And I don't know, it's like, child sex abuse is also prevalent in machista cultures. I'm looking at you too, Indians from India. Extremely. Also religious persecution. Okay, like there's a lot of social stigma that Latinos don't want looked at, don't want under a lens. I know the Black community is like that, but you know what? I'm not going to speak for the Black community. I could. But being that I've been told stuff about my color, I don't want to. There's social disadvantages for homosexuals in every culture. Okay. There's also social disadvantages for divorced women in the Latino culture, and they get socially stigmatized too. Babies born out of wedlock get socially stigmatized in Latino culture. And, even the way that we raise children, I've, think that can use some improvement, Latinos, okay? We do want to remain very cultural about a lot of our beliefs. I think that in Latino culture as a whole here in America, I don't think a lot of us have been captured enough to hurt our bodies from this ideation, because there's certain advantages, to the fact that we do uphold the binary. There's just some things we wouldn't do very often. But in Latino culture, like I said, gay sons are not valuable. They are stigmatized in these regions. It's another domestic hand that is always useful. They'll say that this culture has been around since pre-Hispanic times. And that's rubbish. It's already decolonized. That's what they'll say of the Muxe. They're so OG, okay? But homophobia was accessible to both Hispanics from Hispaniola and the ancient Zapotecas. Okay. This is why this has been culturally driven. Homophobia has driven this. And they have gotten to this system. They've gotten to the mothers. Everyone is locked in. This homophobic tradition of spinsterizing gay, effeminate sons because they won't be purposeful as men in the standard of society that degrades them down the path of opposite sex ideation, now culturally compounded by Western imaginings of trans. This is not a win. Okay. Culturally, this is not a win, Mexico. It shows the innate homophobia, the disdain for the person when they defy the binary, when they defy that societal role. There's a disdain, which is very much valued in Latinidad, the binary. I keep saying it will always be the ideal. this practice in Mexico, it also shows how culturally weak Mexico has become, that they would allow Western ideas on trans to colonize their once woman worshiping tradition within the Muxe framework. Okay. There's a lot to unpack with these people. I needed to. Mexican culture does not want to be scrutinized in a Western lens, but I see no differences in practices and belief system as the American trans here. Because of the Western attention that Muxe culture has received in the last decade, as a fake trans narrative revs up in their argument to include cultures where trans is seemingly tolerated because of the attention and their breakout in the Western dialogue. Like, example, like the Muxe culture has been emboldened, I think. They see the trans rights pushes, the political pushes in the Western American sphere. They see that. They know that this is being discussed globally. They're being discussed globally. And they want a piece of the pie. They want it. And so because of this, the culture has changed so much. This Muxe men marrying women was not part of the culture. This was not part of the original tradition of the Muxe. This has been queerified too, these practices. So they get Vogue covers, documentaries. They get the American stylized narrative. The queer and the trans positive message of fake, it will probably be a while, if ever, because trans dudes are not the brightest. But it will be a while, I think, before they realize that the Muxe were not immune to usurpation and gentrification. It's already started. Locally in Oaxaca, there are debates going on right now, interestingly. I read a couple of articles. There are debates going on, the true Muxe versus fake Muxe. They're like true transing it out with the younger Muxes, who are, of course, bringing the queer theory. For instance, you don't even have to dress, they say. You don't even have to dress in the traditional Oaxacan dress anymore to be a Muxe. You can wear male clothes now. You'll still be a Muxe. They're not defined by their appearance anymore. Their sex preferences are fluid now, too. Okay. It's all very familiar to the American trans. This whole ideology, I think, is really self-imploding. If this is where the debate is going. And I think culturally, in time, there will be an intolerance. Especially, I think, to these particular demonstrations where what we had here once were males that really just love their mama too much, and women in society emulated them, mimicked them. This is what it's always been, transvestic fetishism. Except now we are all forced, right? We all must comply. I'm about to wrap this up. Mexican moms, get into some good therapy. Not like a militant approach therapy. Not that. But good therapy if you are experiencing family conflicts. If for anything else, to have someone experienced in psychology to hear you out. I've been in therapy. I'm not in therapy right now. I'm fine right now. I'll be okay. But I have been in the past, and I really thought that it helped me. It helped me every single time. The burden was not there for my family. It took me a while too, though, as a Latina Mexicana. I'm gonna be real. It took me a while to see it as valuable and worthwhile, because it was extremely frowned upon in my family. And like I said, I kept it secret. Oh, did someone mention a drink? Let me read these comments. Marsh, thank you for sticking with me. Look, listen, hunting down a good therapist, I mean, that in itself, it's like the freaking Olympics, okay? And in this horrible system right now that we have in California, I don't know where you're from, Marsh, but I'm in California and it's just broke. It's a broke down joke. It's broke down palace here in California. Mental health is not accessible. And I have health insurance, not, like, it's okay. But to access it, what if I had a mental health crisis? No, don't have a mental health crisis in California, basically. Yes. Sup? I'm down. Listen, I had a good one. She's a Jewish, what do they call them, people? Deadhead. She loves the, what is that band called? The Grateful Dead. I was too little for Grateful Dead. So glad, Marsh. Yeah, like, get yourself a good therapist. I had one. She's amazing. I know I could go back to her if I wanted to. We keep in touch. That's always good to have someone like that. Okay. She's a good one. She's a real one. And she's actually, my therapist was the one to talk. She put me in my place about gay men. Okay. Oh my God. Like, my Jewish, straight, New Yorker, deadhead fan therapist told me to quit gay men entirely. True story. Yeah, she's the real one. Yeah, it took me a while to find a good therapist. Perhaps it has made me naive. I think, my Mexican disbelief in mental health disparity. And I think it's just because, I also don't see, I don't think I see the world through a medicalized lens like Excellence must. Erase. No, like and I think that could be a disadvantage. I could see where that has been a disadvantage because, as you see, I have run-ins, but I think it's also like a part of me is just, I first want to try, give people chances, kind of, and not have to veer too fast to like, trying to get too medical about it and diagnose what I think their condition is. Some people are passionate. And I like it. I like fire. I like passionate people with a lot to say. Yeah. Maybe my disbelief in mental health is makes me naive, or maybe it's helped me deal with people out in the wild in a different way. I'm not exactly on default like expecting everyone to have like a mental illness or like lose it. But I also think that it has benefited me in some ways to not believe in everything that science has to say, for instance. There's like still a part of me that wants to do my own research, and I want to use my eyes, ears, and head. I just kind of always want to see things for myself. When it comes to the Muxe, I think like we can call it culture. We can call it a cult. We can call it subjugation, and I think that a lot of that subjugation comes from the Mexican rosy colored glasses, maybe a little bit, but it also comes from like a place where we don't want to deal with disparity. We don't want to deal with homophobia. We don't want to deal with the effects of homophobia in a binary culture. We don't want to have to deal with what the Joneses are going to say about it or about our gay kid. I can see that. Unfortunately, I do think it very much stems, as with our culture here with trans ideology, it stems from a lack of mental health resources, of which these people in Oaxaca have none, like nothing. And so it would be no surprise to me, that this culture get even more culty. It's a pageant now. What is it gonna be tomorrow? But yeah, this is exactly what moms need. Like some moms in this culture, they have coddled their sons. Gosh, the coddling. The coddling is endless. It is endless. I try not to do it. I will say my friend, one of the moms in the neighborhood that I'm very close to, she coddles her son. She has 3 sons. Oh my gosh. And I don't want to talk about them too much, but I see a lot of that Mexican mom coddling, and these kids are given everything. And they look at my kid who is not given everything. Okay, I don't give my kid everything. Why? Did he earn it? I don't know. Like I see her style of parenting, which is very much in par with this coddling, this special attention that mothers give to boys, that male deference. Okay, that just we allow all of the behaviors from boys. It's almost like moms are not critically raising their children, not their sons. Their sons were born, they came out of their womb like ready to rule the roost. And sometimes some of these moms, like my friend, they tend to treat their sons as if they were the partners they never had. That happens with you Latina Mexican moms. So I don't know. Like these are some things to look at. And I'm glad that you joined me, Marshmallow. Thank you so much. And this was a really good topic for May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And in Latinidad, I know that we don't like to talk about it. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to do a lot of things. Don't be lazy. Get therapy. And get your children therapy for when they're navigating difficult things, like questioning their sex, their sexual orientation, questioning that in this culture where we're telling our children all kinds of messages, mixed messages about sexual identity and all of that. Okay. Like get your kids to a good therapist and not a gender militant. You have to know the difference between that. Good old fashioned therapy. Good old fashioned therapy. Don't go to a therapist that specializes in one. Don't do that. Start with good old fashioned therapist. Just someone that will help you be you too. Therapy is for family. Okay. Like if you're in therapy, your whole family should probably be doing therapy with you. I'm just saying. Thank you so much for joining me for this live discussion. I had a lot of fun doing it and putting it together. And I had a lot of fun holding these Mexicans to account. Let's get ourselves some really good therapy. We're like, it's getting crazy out there and we'll need it to be the survivalists that we are. Exposing this stuff is good. Talking about it is good. The truth is going to set us free and the truth is ours. us GCs looking at this stuff and analyzing it, us TERFs. Okay, I'll see you next time. Thank you.